Okay, let me continue this. The rest of the crowd, I think they will follow. Let me just give another example away from the electron, which some people may not be familiar with this. I will do another example. Very simple example. If I take an example of a fan in the ceiling. Okay, so let's say I have a fan with 3 pedals like this. Okay, so there is a fan here, and this is pedal number 1, pedal number 2, pedal number 3. And the principle of work here, it's a rotation. So this thing rotates like this. So they rotate, let's say, in this direction. And if I am running the fan at relatively low speed, okay, so here is my fan. That's position number 1. Now, if this goes at, as I said, at low speed, then in few seconds, I could see this one now has moved here. And this 2 changed its position right here. And this 3 so I could see that. I could see 1 moving here, 2 moving here, moving 3 here. Now, if I move this at a higher speed, okay, then I will see the rotation. This will move down here, and this will move here. And this fan, the last pedal will move maybe here, and of course, this probably will be here. Now, when you move at much higher speeds, so let me move this here. Then it's possible you will see this guy is moving here. And this something like this. I'm not good at drawing, but nevertheless, I'm trying to show some visualization here. So with the fan, now if you run the speed, the speed at very high, the fan at very high speed, then you will see that this pedal here, one, will be rotating, and you will probably, if you can observe it at very microscopic level, then you will see it right here in all of these positions almost at the same time, unless you can magnify your glasses and your view, then you could see it's moving. But the only way the one will change its position in 0 second, and 2 and 3 will change it into position second, which is impossible. It means that one will exist here, will exist here, will exist here, and this whole fan becomes a solid, one solid material. You cannot distinguish between pedals 1, 2, and 3. That's the only way, which is impossible. We know that this is not the case because each one of them takes a limited time. Note that I'm using the word limited time to move its position from one location to another. This can be done, this can happen only if the energy, the power that's moving pedal 1, or the speed in this case, goes to infinity. Which means your time equals the 0 second when you have unlimited energy, unlimited power, which is cutting all the distance in 0 time, so 1 becomes available in all the space, which is impossible from our rationale. Now, our rationale says the fan pedals will not exist in the whole space domain of the fan all at once. It's impossible. It will not do it. And otherwise, the issue of fan moving and generating air for us will not be possible. It becomes a myth. The reality is that the fan in the ceiling, whenever I look at it, I look at the pedal and it's moving, and I know that the time it takes to move a pedal from one location to another is non-zero. It could be very high speed, but they will never touch. They will never catch each other. And that reminds me of the ayah where it says لَلَّيْلُ سَابِقُ النَّهَارِ. It says actually what is this form? لَلشَّمْسُ ينبغي لها, I will translate in a second, ينبغي لها أن تدرك القمر. The sun will not be able, the sun will not catch up with the moon, and the day will not bypass the وَلَلَّيْلُ سَابِقُ النَّهَارِ here. Will not bypass the day. Okay, and that's a notion of time where your time is limited. There is a limitation in your time and in your motion and in the orbits you are in. So this is clear. I think this is it's a valid argument and can be observed. What cannot be readily observed is how about the n limitation in the other n. So remember, limitation can be the limitation in time can be from before the zero or beyond the zero, something which is, if it exists in a zero time, if this was zero time, that means object A can be in any place at any point of time, which means it will not be limited. Which means it will occupy all the space that it can occupy it in zero time, which means I can exist here and in America at the same time. I can exist here and in the moon at the same time. And the remaining stuff is physical material energy, which is totally different question. But if, as I said, if this can exist in any position which it can occupy at the same time, then my fan here will be all over the place at the same time. My moon and sun, they will be all over their orbit at the same time, and therefore it's not only they will surpass each other, but they will be, each and every one of them will be in the same position at the same time, which makes the universe one solid object, which is not true. That defies the reality that we observe. So it's sensible reality. My sensible reality is that objects do exist in two different places at the same time, and it never had happened that one object exists in two places at the same time. And it doesn't happen that one object occupies the space of the other object and both exist at the same time. Two different objects exist in the same space. So that's also not valid. And here I need to mention this also. We know that two objects cannot occupy the same space at the same time because each one will eliminate the physical attributes of the other object, which is not possible unless it pushes it away. Let me put my, sorry. Okay, so now this is the second question. That's a bit more tedious question, but nevertheless, we can make it clear, which means if this object now, to move from position A to position B, here it's taking limited time. If it stays here, then I know I can measure the time if I observe it, or I can realize that there was a time difference. If it moves here, the question is, what if the time equal infinity? Infinity means this object to come to this position, it will never end. That's infinite time. It means, have I reached yet? No, that's your time. You're still moving. So it will continue to be in absolute motion where its position, second position is undetermined. I left my first position from here, but then it takes me forever to get to the second position. Means if object 1 needs infinite time to get to position 2, to position B, it means that object 1 will never be observed or sensed in position B at any time. There is no way in the world I would be able to observe object B. Why? Object 2 at position B. Why? Because I'm saying it takes infinite time. But If I spend million years, it's still not there. If I spend billion years, it's not there. If I spend trillion years, it's not there, which means it will never be in a place where I can sense. And the fact that as long as object one exists, no matter where it moves, I always can sense object one, and I can determine its existence at any point of time. That's reality. So if object one needs infinite time, object one will never be observed. However, I can always observe, sense, or rationalize. All of these are eventually synonyms, or rationalize the existence of object one at any point of time. Whether it's the sun, it's the moon, it's the star, it's the galaxy, at any point of time I can determine, which means I can determine the location in space for any existing object. I'm not talking about an object that does not exist. So if this object, object one, is absolutely annihilated, it becomes nullified, it doesn't exist at all. If that's the case, then of course it will not have a space, it will not have a position. So it will disappear, but it does not disappear in infinite time. So at each point of its existence, at this point of its existence, I can rationalize it. When it's here, I can see it. When it's here, I can sense it. When it's here, I can sense it. But if it goes all the way outside, so I'm trying to see if I can make it disappear here, slowly and slowly. So if it's gone from my space domain, then to me that's not an existence, because I cannot determine its existence. But when did it exist? At any point of its existence in my domain, in my life, in my space, in my universe, then it will always be recognized and rationalized. Meaning that I can conclude that an object, material object, will not make any relocation in space in zero time, and it will always use finite time, finite non-zero, of course, to move to a new position. What this tells me is that in the space that we live in, time can be neither zero nor infinite, because if it's zero, it means that two different objects can exist in the same location at the same time, or I mean, one object can exist in two locations at the same time, or one object takes infinite time to move from one location to another location, which is not possible both ways. So time can be neither zero nor infinite, which means time must be limited. And time cannot be unlimited. And that is this is the correlation between the limitation in space and limitation in time. And this is exactly what we have said in the first paragraph or the second paragraph in the path of Iman, Tariq al-Iman, where if an object is limited in any of its dimensions, then it must be limited by all dimensions. When we observe an object, we find that it's limited, which means it must be non-eternal, which means it must be limited in time. Non-eternal means non-limited in time. That's the rationale here. But before I conclude this subject, I may raise the question myself. Okay, then I say this is fine. This is true for space location. Okay, what about other characteristics of the matter, the material being, material object? Because material object can change many things while it's not moving. For example, object changes color without moving. So there is a change in color. Or changes color, changes, let's say, what else other than the color? Maybe smell, if you will, can change living status in terms of, let's say, number of living or dead cells. All of these are changes in material being, let's say, for the life stuff. It's not only the positions. And the answer here is simple. When we talked about the change in space position, we are really talking about change. We're talking about change in general. But in this case, we said the change in position takes time. Now, the change in color takes non-zero time, non-zero finite time, because if you are changing the color of a tree, let's say, that color will not be, it will not be green and yellow at the same time. It needs to be a non-zero. If some of the animals that change their colors when they are moving, like lizards, a lizard changes its color. The color changes, but it does change in finite time, with finite time and non-zero time. It cannot be at the same exact time, green and yellow or green and red. There is a time elapse, which is non-zero and finite. And if you are talking about the living status of an object in terms of cells, in terms of viruses, diseases, whatever, in the body, this cannot be at the same time like you have a dead cell and a living cell. It's impossible. So all of this, so the same argument applies for the change, for any change in any attribute of matter. And that's why in some places, there was one time when the person that Allah Azza wa Jal tested, and he was dead. Allah Azza wa Jal took his life for 100 years. And when he woke up, he asked him, how long have you been absent? because he thought he was sleeping. He said maybe half a day or part of a day. Then Allah Azza wa Jal told him, just look at the status of your animal, your donkey, the one that you were using, that the change that took place for his bones. So the donkey already in bones, so the bones, so all the skin and the meat and the fat, all and the muscles, all are gone. And that, of course, will make the person realize that, oh, this process of changing the status of the donkey from a status of a piece of animal that has a structure with bones, meat, skin, and fat. Now it's only a structure with rotten bones. So that change could not have happened in one day or in zero time or in 2 days. So now he realizes that this must have been many years. Then Allah Azza wa Jal reveals to us it was 100 years. He put him in obscenity, in death for 100 years. Then he revived his life. So that's a notion of, again, the change not only in location, in space, in motion, but also in structure. And of course, the change or variations has also come in different places. So let me just state this example for my record. The man who was made dead for 100 years, then was revived to life. The example of the bones of the donkey. So we know that example. There is another example. The Quran draws the variations in the colors of skins of the people, and the variations in the frequencies, I would call them, in the voices, and yes, voices slash spoken language, because the ayah says, إن في اختلاف ألوانكم وألسنتكم, the variations and the differences between your languages, spoken languages, which means your tongues. What is a language? A language, actually, it's a voice, it's a sound, and the sound is a wave, and the wave is a frequency. And the color, what's the color? The color, again, it's the reflection of light of your skin, and this reflection of the light, the skin absorbs certain frequency and reflects other frequencies. So these are frequencies, either in light or sound frequencies. And the Quran says those variations, the fact that you have variations, it means that your time of being in this world is limited, because this is creation. This is the Quran says that, look, just observe your skin, observe your languages, observe your color, and then you will realize that you are created. How is that? Again, once I understand this notion of time, then I would say, okay, if voice frequencies of people are different now, okay, if it's now they are different, and these frequencies are generated over time. There is a time to generate frequencies. Every time there is a new person born or created, you have a new frequency for his voice. Okay. How long does it take to generate the last frequency, the final last and final frequency? Then easily you could say it's infinite time. I need infinite time to generate that. But then the fact that until now, all the frequencies are different. When I say frequency, I mean sound, language, or as the Quran says, the time. These are the variations of this. So the fact that all these frequencies today are finite, but now all the frequencies are different, which means their number is finite. This leads me to the conclude the time that had elapsed to generate all these frequencies must be finite / limited. Why? Because if the time that had elapsed until now had been infinite, that means there had been sufficient time to generate yet one more frequency, the one that I need to make these frequencies start repeating, to finish up all the possible frequencies that could exist ever. And the fact that this has not happened yet, it means that all of these, the time that had elapsed until now is finite, that's the conclusion. So that's another way of looking at the fact that time is finite. So I can do my final conclusion. I would say material objects are finite in both space, which is the boundaries, and time. And if that is so, it means that there is a time when material objects did not exist, or they are not eternal. And that's the final conclusion that we want to conclude. And with this, material and that provides me a method, a rational way of thinking for this very subject. It's a very delicate subject, I understand, but you can review that, think about it, and I will leave my next lecture for bringing questions and talks and discussions on this issue to make sure that we all understand that. Unless you have some urgent question now, I can take that. But for next session, next Saturday, we will keep it for the review and discussions and talks about this issue. Okay, go ahead, Sister Sophia.
My question was about explanation of the example of mukhtalifan alwanuha, the difference in the colors. But if we are having a discussion next time, so then
yeah, Please, yeah, this I will keep it next time. This is very interesting subject, especially
because I
it's in the
understood it.
ayah. Yeah, because it's in the ayah and we need to understand it. And in my opinion, that will fit directly in the issue of understanding the limitation of time. Okay.
Jazakallah.
Any other point here? Okay, Jazakumullah khair. Thank you. And I'll try to upload all this video and the previous videos to both YouTube and the platform, and so you can review these, inshallah. Okay, Assalamu alaikum. We'll see you next time, inshallah.
Walaikum assalam.